And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Games that come in tins. I don't know, is that supposed to make the game more enjoyable? Tins aren't really easy to stack or put on the shelves, but hey. Here we have a game called Analyze Me. Alright, well, analyze this, analyze that, analyze psychologists, what are you thinking about when you see this? They try to ask all these questions and then determine someone's character through that. Well, this game isn't nearly as deep or as convoluted as that. It's more of a silliness trying to say, hey, I'm putting you in a situation. What is your choice here? And I'm going to try and guess which choice you will make. Let's look at it. Each player is given 3 answer cards, A, B, and C. There are 4 decks of cards here: social life, work life, private life, and play life. One person is chosen to be the shrink apprentice, right? And that person is going to draw a card from any stack they want. They're then going to read that card to everybody else, along with the options. So you order your steak cooked rare and it arrives medium well. Do you A, demand a new steak, B, eat it but complain all evening, or C, eat it anyway, preferring not to embarrass the waitress? So then each other player, not the person who read the card, each other player looks at this question hypothetically and picks the best option. I should mention here that I can see why they have 3 options in this game. But a lot of times, some of these options, they just all seem negative sometimes. There's oft times where I said, well, I wouldn't do any of those things. I wouldn't do any of them. But you pick the one that you're going to do the closest to. So everyone picks one. So let's say there's 4 other people in the game, and they all pick one. They put their cards face down. They're shuffled up. And the shrink apprentice then turns them over. And, okay, 3 people said B, and 1 person said A. He said, all right, Sam, I know you would have said B. The demanding a new steak, that's definitely you, Joe. And that means everyone else is a B. Everyone says, hooray, you guessed correctly. And if I guessed everybody correctly, then I get to keep the card. Now, if there's more players, like let's say, for example, there's 6 players, then you simply have to get 3 of the answers correct. Or 7 to 8 players, you have to get 4 of them correct. But if you're correct, then you take the card and it's the next player's turn. The first person to win 1 card from each of the 4 categories is the winner. And that's basically it. But let me show you a couple example cards from each of the categories so you can see how they work. For example, play life. You turn on the lamp and a genie appears. You wish for world peace, your favorite movie star to appear in your bed, or a raise. For work life, doing what you love for a job is great when it happens, what you strive for, or completely unrealistic for 99% of the world. As far as dining is concerned, you opt for TV dinners, eating out, or homemade dinners. And you can see by at least one of these cards that this game is certainly not a children's game. And there's also other problems with it, and I should say that's necessarily a problem, but you can see how I mentioned that it's kind of restrictive to the 3 answers. But it's going to be very difficult to force people to put down exactly what they would do. So this game causes 2 problems. One, someone's going to be offended, probably, at what you think of them. Now, that's fine. Just don't play with thin-skinned people. The other problem is that someone could deliberately change their answer just slightly. For example, if this says, your feelings in classical music, it feeds the soul. You could take it or leave it, it puts you to sleep. And my friend Joe says, I know he doesn't like classical music, so I pick it puts him to sleep, but he says it feeds the soul. And I'm like, what? He's like, well, I really secretly like it. And that kind of can ruin the game, because you can't prove that he doesn't secretly like it, and he could just put that down just to mess you up. And so you got to play with people who are completely honest, even with themselves. And you say, well, of course, that's what I always play with people. It might be more difficult than you think. They did a good job at the selection of questions. There's a lot of questions involved with the game. My problem sometimes is more with the answers than it is with the questions. So you can see those are the problems. It has a few problems, and for that reason, I'm not going to hang on to it, because those problems are enough that, there's enough other party games out there. And I mean, granted, I shouldn't play with someone who's going to break a game like that, but I think a lot of people are going to be flustered by the fact that they're put into these extreme things. I mean, if you see this guy, are you going to yell at him or are you going to go away in embarrassment? Well, maybe I don't want to do either of those. And you know, I think games like this would be more interesting if, for example, you said, here's a situation, what would you do? And you wrote out exactly what you would do, and we mixed those up, and then you tried to match who would do what. I think that'd be probably a better game, but it wouldn't be nearly as simple. And, But, you know, anyway, I mean, there's that idea. It's not a bad idea. I just think the implementation here isn't as good as it could be. So, analyze me. Should you keep the game? A, yes. B, only if you don't have any other good party games. Or C, no. And I think, C, what I did, I put you in this box here, but I think we're going to have to go with C.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.